Hey everybody, Waifu Collector here again, the only fair human on earth, and I want to take a little moment here today to talk about Rematch. If you don't know, Rematch is an all-new arcade-style soccer game from Sloclap, the developers who made Sifu back in 2022. And you may have noticed I said soccer game. Yes, I know it's football, or football as it were, and I know most of the world calls it that, but I live in America, we call it soccer, and I'm just gonna call it soccer, even if football makes more sense generally. And you know, when you think about it, our American football that we have in the US has an awful lot of hand use and an object that I don't think should legally qualify as a ball. But anyway, Rematch. It just came out. It has a good amount of buzz. I had my eye on it pretty much since its reveal, and now that I've been playing it, I figured I'd just let people know a little bit of what's good about it, what's bad about it, and what's just an indifferent fact. So let's talk about it. Now, we'll just start off here. Like I said, this is an arcade soccer game, not a simulator. However, despite that fact, just based on my own expectations before the game came out, when I eventually played it, I was kinda surprised at how not arcadey it was. And I think it's just because the game's presentation is so stylish that I expected it to make greater use of that style. But in reality, the game is pretty tame. It's just a soccer game through and through. Even the mechanics and feel are a bit tougher and heavier than what I was expecting. Not really in a bad way though, it just wasn't what I expected. The arcade part of it is really just the basic simplification of the sport and trimming the fat of the game. You know, things like having fewer players on the field at a time. You can play 3-on-3, 4-on-4, or 5-on-5, so there are never 11-7 players on the field per team like in a real life match. And to go along with that, as you might expect, the field is smaller and matches are shorter, which naturally means more frequent action and a faster, more arcade-like pace to what is typically a fairly slow sport, in terms of watching anyway. And then of course, there's no coaches or fouls. So yeah, those are the arcade changes of the game really. And like I said, it's mostly just kinda no-brainer simplifications to bring the sport to a gaming audience. But still, the game's not insanely fast, it's not especially loose, and it's not doing anything crazy or anything. It's not Mario Strikers. It's not even a step below that. It's just simplified soccer with the stylish art style. You know, players aren't darting across the field at supersonic speeds. They aren't jumping up 30 feet in the air and doing some super mega power kick that blows the net out of the back of the goal. No, none of that. It's just a regular soccer game with the fat trimmed off. And it's really good. So don't be confused. What I'm saying is, I wasn't sure exactly what to expect beforehand because I hadn't watched much of the game, but something I did expect was a loose feeling, kinda extra fast and wildly flashy game. This is not that, and to be clear, I was not disappointed either, because this is a really good game. And the game is easy, but it's also kinda hard. And it's not particularly deep, but it doesn't feel super shallow while you're playing it. I promise I'll explain all this cryptic shit I'm spouting. But true to the slower sports of real life, it may not be the most exciting thing to watch, but it's fun and exciting to play. So let me explain. This is what I mean by the game is both easy and hard. What I mean is that the game is simple and you ultimately don't have a lot of options of what you can do. However, those options are also not the easiest to execute, not before you're used to it. The way the game moves is decently heavy, and so you actually have to be pretty deliberate and intentional with your movements, because a single mistake with a big enough overcommitment can just mean a wide open shot at the goal. And I think I like that in this game's context. But then of course, the goalie being the failsafe against those big mistakes, you know, a last bastion that negates some of those moments, it makes it all less of a one mistake equals a lost game. But then of course, yes, the goalie also has to perform. And being goalie is no easier. In fact, it's harder because of some problems the game has. So let's get into that. This game's really good. It's really fun. I've played about 10 hours with an additional 10 that I played in the beta last month. And I've had a grand old time for the most part, but there are bugs. The game is buggy as all hell currently, and the netcode is a bit of a mess. The worst of it all has to be the desync. You can be playing a 3-on-3 with all 6 players in different areas thinking they're each kicking the ball, when in reality, it never left center field. You might think you blocked a shot as the goalie. Shit, the replay might even show you blocking that shot, but for some reason, it was a goal. Sometimes, the ball will get locked in place and only synchronize with one player, so no one else can kick it until that player interacts with the ball or takes a shot. Multiple times I've watched the scenario play out where everyone is huddled around the ball that won't budge, trying to kick it, only for one player nowhere near the ball to just press the shot button and have the ball magically appear in front of them and give them an easy goal. I've also been on the benefiting end of that scenario as well. And I've scored a goal and then had the replay on my own screen play back a version where I got blocked. And vice versa. It's crazy. The desync is really bad, especially because it's not an infrequent problem. This kind of thing happens pretty often, but at the very least, we can't accuse Sloclap of not trying to fix it. Just in the 3-day early access, the game received 3 hot fixes to try and iron out the issue, but it's still pretty buggy. I mean, other than the desync, I've been put into matches where I just couldn't move my character at all or the camera, and then I couldn't even pause and quit out of it. I just had to close my whole game. I was stuck. The game also crashed on me once, and I couldn't get into a ranked game to save my life. I would try every so often, watch the matchmaking timer go up to 5 minutes, and then just give up. So, I don't know. The game's pretty buggy is my point. I did eventually begin to start to be able to get into ranked games a couple of days later, so maybe that issue has been rectified, hopefully. But even with all that, it's a really fun game, especially with friends. It's a good time. And if Sloclap can get all the shaky stuff ironed out and dealt with, then I think it'll be nothing short of a great game, honestly. But right now, if some bugs and hiccups are something that you can tolerate, if it doesn't seem too bad to you, then I think Rematch is well worth the $30 it's asking for. But with how strong and prevalent some of these issues are, it could be sensible to wait for things to clear up a bit. But I'll leave that judgment call up to you. Yeah, you know, if I had to put a number on it, I think I'm hovering around a strong 7 or a weak 7.5. But funny enough, I think it could be a straight up 8 if it weren't for all these bugs. It is a really cool, fun, simple game. And yeah, like I said, it has a cool art style like Sifu and is very stylish. So, you know, I'm so surprised that it doesn't take more opportunities to throw that style in your face. Instead, they're very reserved about it. And like I said, the game's not too crazy, so I think it has enough to appeal to people like me who want something cool looking and unique, but also not so crazy that it deters people who like FIFA or EA Sports FC, whatever the fuck. Really, the craziest, flashiest thing that could happen in this game is kicking the ball off of the barrier that surrounds the field and then kicking a follow-up goal off of that deflection. That's literally as crazy as it gets, and it's not that crazy. Gets old quick. And before I go, I will say this. One thing that kind of annoys me, even though I get it, is how being goalie works. So basically, someone is made to be goalie at the start of the match, and every time a goal is scored, it rotates and makes someone else goalie. But you aren't locked to it. You can just come out of the box and decide you don't want to do it anymore. And a lot of people do just that. They might just be goalie during a long back and forth, so they decide they're tired of it and just run out and try to get active, only for your goal to be left wide open and your team be scored on. It's so annoying. I kinda wish the person playing goalie was locked or tethered to the box and couldn't come out, or could only go so far. But I get why it's not like that. It's so that you can do spontaneous swaps or just trade with someone who prefers to be goalie, so I get it. but fuck, it's annoying. Alright though, that's it, I'm done. Thanks for watching the video. Feel free to leave your thoughts about the game in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like and consider subscribing for more good gaming talk. Or not, do whatever the hell you want. But until next time, I am Waifu Collector. I am just a normal guy. I like hentai, and I'm gonna go play some more Rematch. Goodbye.